How can we have the division that we have? I can't believe I'm watching Hannity and Newt and Mark Levin all melting down. This is a great moment for us. Finally seizing the populist initiative, removing one of the swampy compromisers in the debt world that we're in, and we have vilified patriots. This is going to happen a lot. I'll tell you what, to keep awake, to stay alert, requires that you have to really have a right analysis of what's happening. We do that on the podcast. And what makes that possible is these pure chocolate energies everywhere I go. I mean, this is a fact. I was just out in Denver the other day. I was at a meeting with some business people, and they were elbowing me saying, "You got some of those chocolate chewies with you?" It was almost like I was a drug trade going. I said, "I don't have any chocolate chewies on me right now. I left them in my room. I had them with me, but they weren't in the room." And I realized that it's taken off. The polyphenol antioxidant, mood and performance enhancing, reducing appetite, pure dark chocolate with the natural antioxidant rich energy. You can have a maximum of 2, 3, 4 of these. They recommend no more than that. Some people, they give a warning, maximum 8 a day. I'm fortunate that I only do 4 a day, but you can get this at lancewallnau.com/energy, lancewallnau.com/energy, and you can find out why my friends and I find chocolate chewies better than that cup of coffee that you're looking for. Faster, easier, and more enjoyable.
You don't get the jitters either. I'm just saying that, like they're about this big. That's one of them, and you take them and you don't get the jitters. That's one of the pluses. And 2 of these is equal to 1 cup of coffee. So if you're like my husband Larry, who doesn't like coffee but he likes chocolate, this is the way to go. And make sure you subscribe, and you'll save big. Put them on auto ship. That way you'll always have a pack at the house ready to go. That's
new pure chocolate energy. 30 individually wrapped dark chocolate chews. lancewallnau.com/energy. Let's go into this wild show. Thank you and welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show on Real America's Voice. I always love to be able to be on this platform because the Army and the posse and the whole enchilada of people that are watching this program are a movement that every now and then delivers a punch. And I honestly believe that what happened with the ouster of McCarthy clearly is because of a certain perspective that we have on this platform, this channel, that isn't shared by Mark Levin and Newt Gingrich, evidently. We're going to get into that. How can we have so much confusion and turmoil in the conservative toy box? How can we? It's like Ukraine. Totally different analysis on Ukraine. It's like, we got to do it. We got to do this. And why? Why are we putting another $100 billion over there into that sinkhole, that human meat grinder that is going nowhere? All right, so let's talk about what's happened this week. I want to go into the division in our own ranks and see if we can understand the logic. There's a reason why there's division right now over what Matt Gaetz and the Noble Eight have done. But I want to read to you Hugo Lowell, writing here in The Guardian. And I want to read to you the classic temper and sound of the way the press is covering this thing. And by the way, Mercedes Sparks, I see you put away your Chick-fil-A lunch. I didn't want to call on you while you were eating your Chick-fil-A here, and I'm sitting here laboring at the desk.
Lord's chicken.
A grim-faced Kevin McCarthy clenched the armrest of his seat in the House as he was ousted from the speakership on Tuesday, the knuckles of his right hand turning whiter with every vote that assured he would lose the gavel in a move without precedent in modern U.S. history. I'll continue reading down. I want you to catch the way in which the Matt Gaetz and his team are characterized by the media. McCarthy's ouster was the culmination of months of internal Republican Party antagonism and an epic power struggle between McCarthy and a small group of hard-right members that had tormented him ever since they ultimately failed to stop his ascent to the speakership in January. I want you to notice the spin doctors They tormented him like you're just a little Kevin McCarthy going with his lunchbox to school. There's Matt Gaetz jumping out and like bullying him, making fun of him at the bus stop. And they ultimately failed to stop his ascent. They failed to stop his noble rise and ascension. And they failed to thwart it like Cinderella's evil sisters whose feet couldn't fit into the glass slipper. Well, in any event, it's the villainizing of the noble is something we're just going to have to get a handle on. It's going to be happening. But Matt Gaetz, although Bannon does have his interesting take, Mercedes. I don't know if you've noticed this lately, and I'll watch when you're chewing so I can catch the right time to call on you. I don't think Natalie Winters is chewing while Steve Bannon is doing shows, but I'm going to let you go ahead and anyway.
I haven't eaten all day. I've had 2 egg bites.
You know what? Listen. The main thing I want to talk about is Matt Gaetz, according to Bannon, is presidential material. Steve could not be singing his praises more highly. He says, not since Webster have we had someone who could articulate on his feet. He could literally prosecute a case with the distraction, the whirl of cameras and agitated journalists shouting out questions. He zeroes in and hits the target precisely with every syllable. I'll tell you, he got me thinking. This indeed is courageous statesmanship. We need to see these kind of patriot moments because we have the Adams and we have the Jeffersons. God provides the people for the moment in history when they're needed. Somehow they show up. And Matt Gaetz and his friends. I suppose you could play this video clip. It's 44 seconds, but you'll see what I mean is he's looking at a couple of bullet points, but he's in the middle of a storm of agitation, and he's maintaining composure and pinpoint precision in his prescient commentary. Listen to this.
To whose benefit? People have called you a narcissist. People say that is to your benefit alone. Is it to the benefit of you and to Donald Trump?
It's the benefit of this country that we have a better Speaker of the House than Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy couldn't keep his word. He made an agreement in January regarding the way Washington would work, and he violated that agreement. We are $33 trillion in debt. We are facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. We face a de-dollarization globally that will crush Americans, working class Americans. Kevin McCarthy is a feature of the swamp. He has risen to power by collecting special interest money and redistributing that money in exchange for favors. We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better.
Let's point out something real fast here, something which evidently Brother Newt, much as I love him, and Brother Mark Levin, who I also love, although he's constantly, he needs to slow down. He's putting himself in the hospital needlessly. The reality is the debt issue is where McCarthy failed us. Why would you reward this man with cover, Newt, and make him sound like one of the most gifted and talented, speakers of the House we've ever had? This is a guy who went into that office promising that he was going to deal with the debt and that he was going to deal with Biden and the omnibus bill and the spending. And what does he do? Only Bannon, I think, is the only guy that ever exposed it. He went in, and his first negotiating point, which I think was privately with McConnell and Schumer behind the scenes, they gave him the thumbs up, we're behind you, and you're going to have a very good, you'll get a lot of cooperation from us. He went in, and instead of doing a 1 year, okay, here's the budget, we're going to do this for 1 year, we're going to challenge you on the bills, but you're going to have this approval for, 1 year in terms of the budget. He went and gave them 2 years. And in doing so, the analysis that Bannon gives, and I think Navarro backs it up, is this was done because you got to understand that McCarthy is a creature of the California fundraising apparatus. You get in that seat because you're able to raise money. That means you owe a lot of donors and a lot of special interests, a lot of favors. What he was doing was he was saying to get elected, he's going to be tough on Biden, on the budget, because we cannot afford this $30 trillion, $31 trillion debt and continuing expanding it. And then behind the scenes, he goes in and tells Biden in a meeting, I'll give you 2 years. We'll take the issue of America's debt. We're going to take it off the table, essentially. They're looking at each other going, in their dreams, they were hoping to maybe push for 2 years. They figured they'd get 1. He gave them the second year, but why? Because that way, Trump doesn't have the issue. No Republican running in the next election has the issue. And the fat cats that are going to be the most impacted by the budget and the finance discussions, they're secure. They've kicked the can down and put that can on the back of the American worker and the people that have to pay their taxes and deal with this inflationary disaster. $2 trillion a year on top of $31 trillion. You're going to go $4 trillion deep with the dollar being devalued. You got BRICS right there on the 30 nations gathering together to figure out how to destroy the U.S. economy and de-dollarize. And you got Biden he's an empty suit doing the agenda of the Marxists. Right now, he wants to approve another, $900 million or $1 billion worth of student loan. I mean, the Supreme Court just issued he's got to figure out another way to absorb more debt, bring in more illegals who cost more money. And so Matt challenges him and said, and these, by the way, it wasn't just him, it was the other courageous 8 or so that voted him in. They said, if you screw around with us on the Biden issue, which was Marjorie Taylor Greene's main support for him would be contingent upon the impeachment of Biden, or on dealing with the debt, then either one of those is a deal breaker. Well, he broke the deal. Then he had what we Jewish people say is chutzpah, to not only broker the 2-year deal so that Trump can't run and put any pressure on adjusting this disastrous debt scenario in 12 months. He goes ahead and he's putting together a deal where, to your point, Mercedes, instead of having each item brought up, which Congress doesn't want to do, Senate doesn't want to do, they don't want to have the unmasking of the bloated, fat budgets so that you go down line by line and say, that $150 million is going to be going for human rights training in the Ukraine budget. What's that for? Oh, LGBTQ advocacy in workshops and training for the military that's in the budget for Ukraine. No, take that $100 million out of that. They don't want to have those items on display for the American public. That's why even these Congress people, what they like to do is like to have us a group vote, up or down as a group. They don't want individual accountability for how they voted. They don't want to be exposed. They don't want their budgets exposed. They want to push them through and make their donors and their back home people happy while they talk the rhetoric of, we got to control this. Well, you got eight noble patriots who stood the ground and said, we will be villainized, we will be demonized, we will be misunderstood, but we're calling McCarthy out. We cannot let him continue to lead the uniparty saying he is a patriot. He's slow-walking investigations. He's at the same time this year that we are barely getting around to getting Hunter Biden to answer a question on something we knew about since 2020 was the laptop and the dad deals. They've already had Donnie 3 times march. Donnie Trump, who did nothing, marched up 3 times for a forensic analysis and a dental flossing on anything that they could pull to see if they could connect the dots on some malfeasance between father and son that they could get Donald Trump in. Well, they've got the mother load here, and they're slow walking it. That wasn't even the issue to Matt Gaetz. The issue to Matt Gaetz was the fact that McCarthy did not act with integrity in dealing with the financial issue. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. I wanted to take a minute to talk about one of my great heroes of the faith, which is Mike Lindell. What's really cool about Mike is it's not just the pillow. It's the fact that the guy makes really cool products. For instance, I start my day off with my coffee. I had a cup of coffee the other day here in the office, and I said, no, I want that. It wasn't like Starbucks. It tastes better. And it was Mike's coffee. I said, what is it? They go, Mike Lindell's coffee. I said, my gosh, get a bunch of my coffees. Now, the best way to start the day is you put on these slippers, right? and have your My Coffee. If you've not worked with these slippers yet, I'm not kidding you. There's a special kind of a design that Mike has put into these with 4 layers of cushion with a solid sole and a fur interior. I call it my sip and slip strategy. I start my day off by slipping on my slippers, then having a sip of Mike's coffee. But you know what else I'm curious about now? Because I've got to check out the 2.0 pillow. The 2.0 pillow actually is designed so that it distributes the heat of your own head, your face. You know, you're lying there, and it makes it so the pillow's always cool. Now, I like that because I wake up in the middle of the night and have to flip over my pillow because it gets hot. Mike's solved that problem. I want you to go to mypillow.com, promo code Lance, because you can get a discount that I've set up for the pillows, for the coffee, and for the slippers. And do it today. You'll be happy. And that should inspire you that there's action you can take, because there is action you can take. And I think we're going to see the mobilization of citizens as activists, because we cannot trust those people that are representing us. They are chameleons, as you heard, in terms of the bell curve. They're artists at staying in office. And we're going to have to be smarter than that. So, Mercedes, have you heard on our Real America's Voice, have you had a chance to hear any of what Charlie Kirk is saying about the situation with Matt Gaetz?
No, fill me in. I mean, everybody's got their commentary, right? So I know we wanted to play the Newt clip too, but what Charlie's saying?
And it's a good point. I want to do that Newt clip because what Charlie's saying is, and it's interesting, you know, he's a great guy. He's saying that, listen, being a younger guy in the conservative movement, you should always respect your elders, and he's had Newt on before, and that's kind of like what alerted me to go check out what Newt's doing, because I knew that Mark Levin and then Hannity, these guys, I wonder if they understand that what Matt Gaetz did was not grandstanding theater, juvenile. It wasn't narcissism. It was sheer leadership. And you know what I was thinking? Remember what the left did, what the Democrats do? I mean, they will do anything to improve their game position, their advantages. They took Justice Breyer, who wasn't even evidently, I don't think he really wanted to go. I think they said, time for you to go. They wanted to take it, even if they're not in power, even when don't have the gavel, they control whatever they can control. And they said, we're putting a new Supreme Court person up. Well, it's not up to them to do that. But they decided they're going to put someone on the Supreme Court. So they took one of their own out and put another one in. It's amazing. And they wanted to put someone who would be so radical that they could count on for the transgender battles ahead. Can you tell us what a man is? Can you tell us what a woman is? Oh, that's above my pay grade. I don't really know what a man or a woman is. It depends on what you mean by man or a woman. Boom. That person. Put them in. They know exactly how to obfuscate the subject matter to the extent that they didn't say one thing or the other. That's exactly what we want to get through the process. Trust me, when it comes time for voting in the Supreme Court, that justice is going to vote the party line. That's why they put her in. So I think what we have finally done is taken a page from the Democrat playbook. Yeah, we have a slim majority in the House. The old school thinking is, be happy, you got McCarthy. He's a good guy. He raises money good. Everybody likes him. But you see, we got to get rid of him because he's the wrong guy. We need to switch out our own players. That's very dangerous to do that because, yeah, you do it wrong and you can end up with a House so divided and so mangled that the Democrats actually win. It's a bold play, but I do think it was the right one. And I'll tell you why. Because it makes room for a far better principled conservative that isn't saying one thing and doing another to take that gavel. Let's hear, however, what I Have Newton Toe of Frog has to say. Newt Gingrich.
4% decided they were so morally superior, so intellectually pure, so patriotically better, that they would side with the Democrats, and that's what they did, in order to defeat the entire Republican House caucus. 96% of the Republicans voted for McCarthy. 4% voted against him. From my position as a longtime Republican activist, they're traitors. All 8 of them should, in fact, be primaried. They should all be driven out of public life. What they did was to go to the other team to cause total chaos. We ought to be focusing on Biden. We ought to be focusing on the economy. We ought to be focusing on the border. Instead, you're going to get a week or 10 days of the media focusing on Republican disarray. It's an astonishingly destructive behavior by a handful of egocentric people who think they're superior to 96% of the conference.
All right, so here's the irony of ironies. These 4% aren't the patriotically pure, morally superior.
Exactly.
He's absolutely right. But they're not egotistic. They're not narcissistic. They're courageous because they're saying we can't afford games.
It is about the economy. It is about the border. It's about the economy. That's why he's doing what he's doing. It's about not funding the Ukraine border and instead funding the United States border. I love Newt. I've liked Newt for a long time, but he could not be more wrong on this.
So anyway, I was mentioning earlier Charlie Kirk. So Charlie was talking about this could still work to our advantage. And the way that it works to our advantage is if we get the right speaker in. Now, there are 2 that are clearly potential front runners for the job, Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan. Now, the challenge here is that it requires incredible physical stamina. I mean, you're talking about they're literally the frontline fundraisers for the party. It also requires a tremendous amount of intellectual vigor and a strong constitution to pick the fight and stick with the fight. And I'd also say it requires goodwill from McCarthy, who still has like 175 or 180 of those congressional votes behind him. What's scary, Newt, is that 96% of our Republicans get bought off, compromised, or modified when it comes to taking a stand on the border, on the economy, on debt, on immigration, on any of those issues. Mm-hmm. They end up being mute, which is why you have to have that sense of urgency that these 8 have, because we cannot afford. My gosh, do you hear anybody talking about the fact that Donald Trump has a gag order on him now, facing 700 years? Forget the 700 years in jail or in prison. I have to say forget that, because the immediate threat that no one's talking about is to have your entire family's financial status. He had deals with banks that banks loved. He paid the banks back. He increased the value of his own organization, beautified the skyline in New York. They want to tear down the man's properties. They want to tear down his family and bankrupt him, just like they're doing with Mike Lindell, just like they would like to lock up Steve or Navarro. These people are out of control. And I look at the party and say, where's the voices that are stopping every now and cussing mad and calling out what's happening in the dangerous, delirious, Marxist, criminal nature of what's taken over like a demon, the Democratic Party? Well, then you turn around and realize it's because another type of paralysis devil has taken over Republicans, who do not speak. They're silent while they watch the rape take place. All of that has to be dealt with. So Mercedes, Charlie's saying that Jim Jordan actually would be the perfect person for that, probably because Scalise, I don't know where Scalise was on January 6th, but I suspect there's great guy. But I think there's certain.
I think he was in the Capitol that day.
Yeah, he's in the Capitol. But I think there's certain moderate tendencies that for those of us that have a checklist of red meat issues.
Well, I think Jim threw his hat in the ring, although I did see him on Fox the other day.
He definitely has his hat in the ring, and he supported McCarthy. So my point is McCarthy will also support him.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We'll see what happens. You know, it's just got this whole feeling of like, well, just go along to get along. And I'm like, I love what Matt's doing. We should be supporting that all day long. And I don't know how, as a conservative, you can think any other way.
Yeah, and who are these nut jobs that are, we only got 26 seconds here to end this thing, but who are the nuts that are that are actually trying to vilify and primary these guys, I guarantee in their own districts, in their own backyard, they are probably being heralded right now as answers. Well, you know, every day we discuss these issues, and I actually have a biblical perspective I want to share with you. I'm going to do it on my own broadcast. LanceWallnau.com/podcast. We want you to join us every day you can. LanceWallnau.com/podcast. Mercedes, me, and we cover the trending topics with a prophetic perspective on what they really mean and what's really being teased behind the surface. You'll love it. I'll see you there.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.